The moment the tether snaps, something profound occurs within the silent corridors of a woman's psychology. It is a shift that is rarely immediate and never loud, but it is absolute. For a long time, she may have operated under the assumption that your attention was a permanent fixture, a background radiation that fueled her sense of self-worth and emotional security. But when you truly detach, when you stop the pursuit and withdraw your energy into the fortress of your own purpose, the air in her world changes. She begins to feel the weight of an absence she never thought possible. This is the beginning of an internal collapse, a sequence of emotional events that moves from a defensive posture of coldness to the eventual realization that she has lost something irreplaceable. Most men misinterpret the initial silence of a woman as a sign of her moving on, but they fail to see the tectonic plates of her ego shifting beneath the surface. She isn't moving on, she is holding her breath, waiting for the familiar pull of your pursuit to validate her once again. When that pull never comes, the panic starts to set in, but it is a panic disguised as poise. You need to understand the mechanics of this shift, not to seek revenge or to manipulate her emotions, but to understand the power of your own presence and the even greater power of your absence. When a man knows his worth, his departure isn't a tantrum. It's a structural change in the relationship. This script will guide you through the distinct phases of this transformation, explaining the hidden motivations behind her behavior and showing you why your silence is the most honest conversation you will ever have. We will explore the masks she wears, the games she plays, and the eventual clarity she finds when the man she took for granted becomes the man she can no longer reach. This is not about winning a game. It is about reclaiming your sovereignty and understanding the psychological reality of emotional loss from the perspective of a woman who thought she held all the cards. By the end of this journey, you will see that your detachment was not an end, but a beginning, a transformation of your own spirit that forces everyone around you to reevaluate who you are. The first shield she raises is the mask of icy indifference. When a woman realizes the dynamic has shifted and you are no longer the one reaching out, her instinctive reaction is to protect her pride at all costs. She cannot allow herself to appear affected by your withdrawal because, in her mind, to show pain is to admit that you held the power all along. So, she turns cold. She becomes a statue of indifference, responding to your absence with a silence that is meant to feel like a choice rather than a reaction. This is what we call emotional armor. It is a projection of strength designed to convince both you and herself that she is entirely unbothered by the fact that you have stopped chasing. She will speak with a clipped tone if you do happen to cross paths, and her digital footprint will suddenly become a void of direct communication. But you must look closer at the nature of this coldness. True indifference is quiet, relaxed, and forgotten. It doesn't need to perform. The coldness she displays is sharp, jagged, and intentional. It is a performance of power intended to see if she can still provoke a reaction from you. She is waiting for you to crack, to ask her what is wrong, or to beg for the warmth she has suddenly withheld. In this stage, she is testing the structural integrity of your new resolve. She believes that if she acts cold enough, your fear of losing her forever will override your self-respect and pull you back into the chase. It is a high-stakes game of emotional chicken. Yet, beneath that frost, there is a chaotic storm of uncertainty. She is constantly checking her phone, wondering why the notification light hasn't blinked with your name. She is rereading old messages, trying to find the exact moment the energy shifted. The colder she acts, the more she is actually feeling the heat of the loss. Her ego is screaming for the validation you used to provide so freely, and every day that passes without you reaching out is a day that her armor grows heavier and more difficult to maintain. When the coldness fails to bring you back to your knees, she moves to a more aggressive tactic, the theater of validation. This is the stage where she attempts to manufacture jealousy. If her absence doesn't hurt you, she reasons that perhaps the presence of another man will. She begins to use her social world as a stage, carefully curating moments that are designed to hit your insecurities. She might post photos with friends you've never seen before, or suddenly become much more active in environments where she knows you are watching. This isn't about finding someone new, it's about checking to see if she still has the keys to your emotional state. She wants to see if you will stumble, if you will send a late-night text fueled by anger or jealousy, or if you will show any sign that her worth is still tied to your heartbeat. This is a cry for validation disguised as a social victory. She needs to prove to herself that she is still desirable, that she still has options, and most importantly, that she can still make you feel something. When a woman feels she has lost her emotional grip on a man, her ego enters a state of emergency. She will reach for any tool available to soothe the sting of being ignored. But here is the secret most men miss. A woman who is truly over you doesn't need to show you how happy she is with others. She simply exists. The performative nature of her new social life is the clearest evidence that you are still the center of her internal narrative. She is playing to an audience of one, and that one is you. If you remain grounded, if you refuse to take the bait, the game begins to turn inward. The silence you provide becomes a mirror that reflects her own insecurities back at her. She begins to realize that her attempts to trigger you are only highlighting her own desperation for your attention. This realization leads to the third phase, the performance of forced confidence. In this stage, she stops trying to make you jealous and starts trying to convince the world that she is thriving. She adopts the persona of the woman who has finally found herself, the one who is too busy and too evolved for the past. She will use words like healing and growth, but her energy will remain restless. True confidence is silent and steady. Forced confidence is loud and erratic. She is trying to fill the void left by her absence with noise. She throws herself into work, into the gym, into new hobbies. Not because she is passionate about them, but because she cannot stand the silence of her own thoughts. In that silence, your voice is the only thing she hears. The memory of the man who once cared, who once chased, and who has now become a ghost of self-respect. She is terrified that if she stops moving, she will have to face the reality that she took your presence for granted. This forced confidence is a fragile glass house. It looks beautiful from a distance, but the slightest reminder of your genuine indifference can shatter it. She is waiting for a sign that your detachment is just a phase, a temporary tactic to get her attention. When she realizes it is a permanent shift in your character, the glass begins to crack. She starts to see that the version of you she is currently facing is not the same man she used to manipulate. This new version of you is solid, unmoving, and entirely independent of her whims. This is the moment when her internal narrative begins to flip from, "I don't need him," to, "What have I actually lost?" This leads us into the deepest part of the shift, the inversion of memory. When a woman truly loses access to you, her brain undergoes a selective editing process. During the relationship, she might have focused on your flaws, your mistakes, or the things she wanted you to change. She took your stability for granted. But now, in the vacuum of your absence, those flaws begin to fade into the background. In their place, the good memories start to shine with a painful intensity. She remembers the way you looked at her when she was at her worst. She remembers the safety she felt in your presence, a safety she now realizes she cannot find in the hollow validation of strangers. This nostalgia is not just about you, it's about the loss of the version of herself she was when she was with you. She felt chosen, she felt seen, and she felt important. Without your attention to reflect those qualities back at her, she feels diminished. She begins to idealize the man she once dismissed. Every small gesture you ever made, the way you listened, the way you protected her, the way you stayed consistent, now feels like a rare treasure she carelessly threw away. She starts to wonder if she will ever find that level of devotion again. This is where the haunting begins. You become a specter in her daily life. She sees you in every song, every street corner, and every mundane detail of her day. The silence that once felt like power now feels like a prison. She realizes that the man she can no longer reach is the only man she truly wants to talk to. This is the ultimate irony of the feminine internal shift. Her attraction for you often peaks exactly at the moment she realizes you are no longer available. It is the unreachability that triggers a primal respect. By stopping the chase, you have communicated that you are a man of high value who does not need to beg for a place in anyone's life. This realization hits her like a physical blow. She begins to feel the weight of her own pride. She remembers the times she pushed you away, the times she was cold for the sake of control, and the times she didn't value the effort you were putting in. Regret is a slow-acting poison. It doesn't kill all at once. It erodes the foundation of her ego over weeks and months. She asks herself, "Why didn't I see it then?" And, "Is it too late now?" This internal dialogue is a form of mourning. She is mourning the loss of the man you were, and she is terrified of the man you have become. Because the man you have become doesn't need her. This brings us to the most critical stage, the weight of the prideful aftermath. As the regret deepens, she faces a choice. She can either humble herself and reach out with genuine vulnerability, or she can allow her pride to bury the connection forever. Most women will choose a middle path first, the feeler or the test message. She will reach out with something small, something insignificant, just to see if the door is still unlocked. She might send a meme, ask a random question, or bring up a shared memory. This is not an apology. It is a reconnaissance mission. She is checking the emotional temperature. If you respond with the same old eagerness, she will feel a rush of relief. Her ego will be soothed, her power will be restored, and she will likely go right back to the behavior that drove you away in the first place. But if you remain polite but detached, if you show her that the emotional bridge has been dismantled on your side, she will finally face the full gravity of the loss. This is when the shift becomes permanent. She realizes that her pride didn't protect her, it isolated her. She sees that while she was busy playing games to maintain control, you were busy building a life that doesn't require her participation. This is the moment of true empowerment for you. You have moved from a state of being a seeker to a state of being a sovereign. You no longer look to her reactions to determine your mood or your worth. You have found a peace that is independent of her validation. And ironically, this is the version of you that is most magnetic, yet most unattainable. She will likely live with this regret for a long time, comparing every man she meets to the one who had the strength to walk away and stay away. She will remember you not as the one who begged, but as the one who knew his value. This is the ultimate victory of the Stoic path. It is not about causing her pain, it is about refusing to allow her to cause you any more. You have protected your energy, and in doing so, you have forced her to face the reality of her own choices. The emotional collapse she experiences is the natural consequence of taking a high-value man for granted. It is a lesson in the physics of human connection. For every action of neglect, there is an equal and opposite reaction of detachment. As you move forward, remember that your silence is your strength. It is a boundary that says, I am worth more than a half-hearted love. When you stop the chase, you aren't just losing a woman, you are gaining yourself. You are stepping into a version of manhood that is defined by internal stability rather than external pursuit. Let her sit with her silence. Let her process her regret. Let her navigate the storm of her own ego. Your journey is no longer about her. It is about the man you are becoming in the vacuum of her absence. You have reclaimed your time, your focus, and your heart. And that, in the end, is the most powerful shift of all. You must realize that when a woman enters this phase of realization, she is often looking for any small crack in your resolve. She will look for a like on her photo, a story view, or a mutual friend's comment that suggests you are still mourning her. If you provide these small crumbs of attention, you are essentially feeding the very ego that dismissed you. True detachment means you are no longer an active participant in her emotional theater. You are the director who walked out of the play because the actors weren't following the script of mutual respect. This level of discipline is rare, which is exactly why it is so effective. Most men succumb to the breadcrumbing, those tiny bits of attention she throws out to keep you on the hook. They mistake a, "Hey, how are you?" for a sign of true change. It rarely is. Usually, it is just a check-in to see if her backup plan is still viable. By remaining stoic and focused on your own path, you signal that you are nobody's backup plan. You are the priority, or you are nothing. This finality is what haunts her. She begins to realize that the game she thought she was winning was actually a slow-motion loss of the only authentic thing she had. In the end, the psychological shift she experiences is a transition from arrogance to humility. She thought she could have your devotion without giving her own. She thought she could keep you waiting while she explored other options. She thought your love was a bottomless well she could draw from without ever replenishing. Now she looks at that well and sees it as dry, not because you are bitter, but because you have moved your resources to a land that actually appreciates the rain. This is the empowerment of the wise mentor, to teach through action, not through words. You have taught her that your presence is a gift, not a right. And in that lesson, you have freed yourself from the cycle of chasing someone who was never truly running toward you. Live your life with the quiet confidence of a man who has seen behind the curtain. You know the tactics, you know the masks, and you know the internal chaos that silence creates. But more importantly, you know yourself. And that knowledge is the only thing that can never be taken away. As you walk your path, keep your head high and your heart guarded. The right person will never make you feel like you have to chase them to be seen. Until then, enjoy the peace you have built. It is a fortress that no ego can breach. The silence you have cultivated is not a void. It is a sanctuary where your true self can finally breathe. Let her memories of you be a reminder of what happens when a woman ignores the value of a man who was willing to give her the world. You are the architect of your own future, and that future looks brighter without the weight of someone who didn't know how to carry your heart. This concludes our exploration into the depths of the feminine psychological shift. May you find the strength to stay the course, the wisdom to see the truth, and the courage to never settle for less than you deserve. The man who can stand alone is the only man who can truly lead. Your independence is your greatest asset. Use it wisely, and never let the fear of being alone drive you back into the arms of someone who made you feel lonely when they were right beside you. This is your life, your journey, and your sovereignty. Reclaim it and never look back. The shift is complete, and you are the one who has emerged stronger.